My dear Bagginses and Buffins.
By the blood of our people, are your lands kept safe?
I see in your eyes the same fear that will take the heart of me.
So do all who live to see such times.
By all that you hold dear, this good earth.
There's some good in this world, and it's worth fighting.
Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 1 of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, our re-review, our revisit. So it's been about a year since we've watched the first episode, at least at the very first time we watched it. Some people may have watched it more. I think you watched it
I've rewatched
since
it
before, but then we've just done it again. I didn't. I only watched the first few times I watched it were all in quick succession just to understand it, and then I hadn't revisited it since.
Yes.
So, coming back at it with my already knowing how the season's going to play out and knowing how each episode is kind of going to go, I was able to look at it in a different light and try to maybe be more sympathetic to some of the scenes. Sometimes I'm a bit harsh in my criticism, especially of dialogue. So I tried to come into it with a different mind. I don't know about you.
I did too. I tried to be generous because I feel like hating on things is too much what's happening right now.
That's right. That's right. Like yeah. So I'm coming at this from the point of view as I want this to be good. And knowing, similar to how I eventually came around on The Hobbit, could I do the same with The Rings of Power? And
right.
so
I think some of the issues we kind of have, we kind of know some of these characters already, so we have expectations about Galadriel from before. We have expectations about Elrond from before.
That's a good point.
We've heard a little bit about Isildur and Elendil and these people. So
to your point there, we even have stand-ins for them kind of in the original trilogy with with Boromir, with Aragorn, Faramir, like all these characters that we are inputting those ideas onto these characters, and when it doesn't line up, we point at it and say bad.
Yeah. So now now that we're able to kind of step back, we know broadly what happens. Maybe we can look at this without try to get rid of these biases we had before when we were seeing it for the first time.
Yeah. So I guess this right out of the gate, I'm not as harsh on this first scene as I was previously. What I will say is I think it might be misplaced. I think
this is when they're in Valinor?
Yes. So
Yep.
I think the young Galadriel should maybe have been a flashback, like while she's ice climbing or something. And then I think that because this is like the very first thing we see, it gets scrutinized so heavily. But if it was a random flashback, I think a lot of people will accept it for just being a memory of hers where she remembers what she's supposed to be doing.
I mean, I'm comparing it to the original again, but the original started off with like the epilogue, and I thought that was good, and it sort of felt epilogue-ish to me.
But then they go so they go with young Galadriel, and then they show her grown up as like the epilogue type big action set piece. I kind of feel like that's maybe where they should have gone with this, and maybe throw in that young Galadriel scene somewhere else, because there's no young Frodo scene, you know what I mean? Like there's no young whoever. They come into the story after we know the epilogue, and then we can have flashbacks all we want, but then because Galadriel's part doesn't really fit with the rest of the epilogue, where it's more about the elves doing battle and then her taking up this quest, her just being a little kid being kind of bullied by other elves and sailing her ship. I kind of feel like that isn't part of the epilogue.
But I think what it
or
does
prologue,
is
not epilogue, prologue. Sorry, we keep saying epilogue. Prologue.
Sorry, yeah, prologue. So I think that the idea is that it's establishing that her brother is important to her,
Mm,
and then when we lose him, like we know, like, oh, this is a big deal
right.
to her, and yeah, I think that's the idea there, and
That's fair.
and it is showing like the beginning of time, how things were like nice before everything fell apart.
True.
And then the light goes away and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
No,
guess
do
just
think-
because
I
it's
do-
the first
I-
thing you see, it's gonna have that scrutiny to it.
I was gonna add, I still think, because Finrod, her brother, whispers something to her. They should have kept that more mysterious.
Yes.
But I do get at the end. They do kind of. This is what. Well, we'll come back to it at the end.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think, and this is why I think it should have been a flashback, because I think you couldn't reveal it in moments where that line has more impact and more weight, maybe. But anyway. So yeah. I don't hate this kind of the battle scene that we get. Like, it's kind of a bit slow mo.
The visuals are fine.
Yeah, the visuals are good. For the most part, the visuals are good in this show, and that's something that people can't really argue with. They do a lot of practical, which I love. So I think the visuals are pretty good.
And I wrote down the quote, "We thought the war would be over quickly." I'm like, that's history, isn't it? Everyone thinks the war is going to be over quick, and then it's not.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's right from World War II type stuff. So yeah. So when we get to Galadriel, in modern day, on climbing her mountain.
Well, I wrote, the visuals fine, but I can see why the other elves were like kind of done with their shit at this point.
Yeah. So I actually, this is why it's weird. We started with, and this is why I'm kind of, I get what you're saying about the prologue, but that prologue moment where she's bullied by some elves, and then her brother steps in and gives her a piece of wisdom. And then we have the prologue battle, and then it cuts to her being not bullied by, but mutinied on by some elves. And she's not taking her brother's advice. She's taking it rather harshly. And these elves, they have done more than their duty. Like, they've gone above and beyond for her.
Yeah.
And she doesn't give them not even a thank you. It's more like, we keep going, we press on, and it's,
yeah, she's not even acknowledging.
yeah, like the fact that they've come all this way, they have gone against, they have followed her despite their king ordering her company back home.
Yep.
So this mutiny, when it comes up, it's not like it came out of nowhere. It's they've been saying, hey, we're tired of this. We haven't found anything. This is kind of a fool's errand. And yet we have just seen her.
But then they do turn around right when they find something.
Yeah, I know.
That was the thing. It's like, so here, this is what my note says. So Galadriel is determined, but she's not completely heartless, because she did stop when that one elf collapsed.
True.
But yeah, it seems like they stopped like right when they found like evidence that, oh yeah, he definitely escaped. Like, we found this castle, and this symbol, and this sign of like that they're experimenting with the unseen world, and then that's when they decide, okay.
Yeah, you know what? You don't know how long that symbol's been there. It's probably nothing. We're going home. I agree. I actually think they should have turned around before that and had her just go in by herself. That would have then allowed her to realize, I know I'm right, and then they still say, no, we're going home. They don't believe her because they didn't see it, and so it allows them to not seem silly. But these minor moments throughout that I do pick up on the second time. As far as like the visuals go, I thought they were pretty good. Obviously, there's some bits and pieces of dialogue every now and again that kind of just stick out weirdly. In here, it's one where she just like quickly picks up on the fact that like it's super cold. Like there's no warmth or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it on the second watch. Like
Yeah, and I was my overall thought of episode one. There is a lot of establishing who these characters are, which is
exactly.
I guess normal. But yeah, I said good job establishing Galadriel as being obsessive, and they establish her as a fighter because she takes on that troll like single-handedly.
Right, and so that troll scene, as much as the visuals look good, I actually think in that scene, when you compare it to the troll scene of the of Fellowship, there's something kind of weird about the choreography of the elves. I do wish they kind of did it a little bit more chaotic, because they all I know they're elves and they're like fierce warriors, but they all sort of like get into battle stance and go, and then it cuts to the troll coming in and he kind of throws an ice chunk at them.
Yeah, it's a good point. Actually, I didn't even think about that. Like, Merry and Pippin did better against the troll than these like highly trained elves did.
Right. So like, so to me, the reason that the troll scene with Fellowship works is because it's a bit more chaotic. Here, they get bulldozed by that rock chunk, and then if you watch it, there's a lot of them kind of just standing around watching as she fights it. And that's not the case in the Fellowship. In Fellowship, you can see out of the corner of the screen, like Gimli hitting.
All 9 of them are doing something.
Yeah, everyone's doing, except for Frodo. Frodo's hiding, but that's part of it. Like that's part of who Frodo is, and that's okay. That's part of the movie. But in here, there are some elves that are literally standing around waiting to get snatched up by this troll. So like that's my only critique, is that visually the troll looks cool, and I get why they wanted to go in this like ragged, like snow crusted troll route. It looks very nice on screen. I just wish that they had figured out a better battle scene there, especially because it's our first battle scene that is in real time. I guess like looking back on Fellowship, you don't really get a ton of battle scenes in the first bit anyway, so maybe I should give it a pass here. But I because it's the first one, people like pick up on stuff, like they're really into the show at this point. They're just trying to figure it all out, and you really have to sell this battle scene. So that's my one little critique there. And then we get the true mutiny here, and I'm fine with the mutiny. The elves did nothing wrong. She's gone overboard, but then they find some clues, so it's like not. I still think they should go back and talk to the king, because the king is not evil. Like we don't think the king is evil at this point. So like, even though they find something, it's still time to go home and figure out where to go from here. Right? It's not. Yeah. It's not. Oh, we press on further north. No. We found some clues. Let's go figure out what to go next. So, she's still in the wrong for wanting to keep going. Here. And my notes say, "Oh God, the Harfoots." Now,
meaning the Harfoots.
I'm gonna give them a lot of leeway here to be fun little comic relief characters. I will say, as much leeway as I'm going to give them, I do think there are times where they run into the problem of almost parroting hobbits, which hobbits are supposed to represent almost in like an idyllic lifestyle of like this little farming town, and
it's not that at all. That's true.
Yeah, and these Harfoots are kind of like. They make fun of it sometimes, and they're like kind of goofy.
I think we need to dissociate our preconceived notions.
Yeah.
Of what a hobbit is supposed to be, because this is before there are hobbits.
True.
But we established similar. They are outsiders, and they're wary of men, and they're good at hiding.
Yeah.
I have that.
Yeah.
And then we meet Malva. I wrote down she seems more superstitious than Sadoc. And then we meet Nori, and she's adventurous. Poppy is more cautious, but at the same time, Nori is not wildly irresponsible. She still gets everyone home when she sees signs of the wolf.
True.
And she doesn't scare the younger Harfoots.
No, she does a good job there.
She lets Poppy know what's going on. They get everyone back without terrifying them.
Now, to your point about some of these characters, it does start to be a bit confusing for me. This is getting more nitty gritty into like me trying to understand Harfoot society, but Sadek, he's supposed to like be their elder, their leader, and he uses like this old book of like picture drawings of different people and different events happening to determine when to move positions. He sometimes seems to ignore some of the signs, which is pointed out to him a couple times. And I'm wondering like what, like, is he just so experienced that he knows like sometimes signs are misleading? Like he's like, the sky is strange. Oh, travelers this time of year. Like he doesn't seem to care that things are weird. He's just being cautious, but he's not like, I would expect him to be a little bit more freaked out about everything. But that's just me trying to figure out exactly how these Harfoots operate. I will say I like practical effects. They did great with this. The aesthetic looks awesome, and I do have criticism for some of the costumes in this show. It's not all great. The Harfoots are one of the consistently good costumes I find. Like everyone there looks gungy and gunky and as they should, right? They're hiding in holes and stuff, and they're traveling with like dirt on their wagons. I find that way too often fantasy shows will have these same characters be like pristine and like glowing almost, and so I think they got the visuals down for this group of characters.
Okay, so I think we go back to the elves. We meet
Yeah.
Elrond. We establish that he and Galadriel are old friends.
Romantic chemistry is off the charts in the scene, by the way. Just pointing that out there.
Okay.
Not that they're gonna get together, but I think, you know, if something were to happen, I wouldn't be against it.
I wrote that the Quenya, the Elvish language, feels authentic.
Yep.
And Galadriel is still determined to get it back out there, so she's obsessive, as I said before. More
Right.
character establishment.
Right, and I know they're friends, but again, and this is to her, like this criticism. It's not a criticism. This is just an observation, like you're doing, where Elrond is excited to see her. She's not as excited to see him because she's so determined to get back out there. It almost borderlines into like he is friends with her, but she's not friends with him at times. Like she's only using him as a means
to get to the king.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was intentional or not. I don't hate it. I'm just saying like it's an observation of mine that like he's like, hey, like calm down. Let's hang out a bit. We haven't seen each other in a while, and she is not interested in that. It's just. It's interesting to see how Elrond is trying to rekindle this friendship, and just he's curious about like her travels, and she has no interest in talking about it. She just wants to go. So, yeah, Galadriel's character definitely has problems, which I'm fully on board with, as long as the writers are aware of their problems and we start to work on them to bring her into what we know her to be. So far, yeah, she's a very troubled elf that does need some guidance somewhere from someone, and unclear where she's gonna get it exactly, because she doesn't seem to be interested in talking.
She doesn't listen to anyone. Yeah. So we meet Nori's dad. He's jovial. He's kind of a funny character.
Yeah.
And then her stepmom. I don't think we know that she's a stepmom yet, but Marigold is her stepmom, and she's cautious and isolationist, which lines up with what Harfoot culture seems to be. Whereas Nori is kind of like not like that. She's very curious about the world.
Which I mean, this is just another weird like Harfoot thing for me, and I'm trying my best to like not hate these Harfoots. I am, but their whole thing is traveling around, and yet to be an adventurer is to go against being a Harfoot. It's very weird that a group that migrates consistently doesn't ever try to see what else is just beyond the next. You know what I mean? Like they're in a constant fight or flight. Well, mostly flight mode. And then they constantly have to migrate to search for food and warmth. And they choose not to investigate slightly further than their strict path. It's just a weird quirk of their culture.
It is strange. They have like a set migration path and they won't go off of it.
Yeah, and they have sayings where like don't go off trail. Like it's just it's hard for me to like grasp this culture and like really like let it breathe for me when everything they do is like it doesn't seem to make sense of how I would view a Harfoot, for example. So, but again, I think everyone does a great job here. I even like the accents. I know back in the day people didn't like the accents. I kind of like the accents.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
So, yeah, so that's just my little quirk with the Harfoots. And then we get back to the elves, and we get to see the speech Elrond wrote. I don't like this speech. I don't think it's very good.
Hold on. Oh, I actually had.
You got more Harfoots. Okay.
Yeah. So like, there's just Largo in the background. He said, "That's your problem. A wheel is supposed to be round." So like, Largo is like a.
That's
funny
right.
character.
That's right. Oh, I forget about that. There's another one coming up in one of the things where he talks about.
The back. Or
Yeah,
the back.
the back or the back. Yeah. Yeah, there's some good moments from him. That's for sure. But yeah, we get to Elrond. He writes this speech. I'm not a fan of this speech. I don't know if that's the point. I'm kind of curious what you think. Was the point that he's a good speech writer, and that like he was struggling to write this speech when Galadriel first comes up?
I think it's supposed to be good. Yeah. I think.
I don't like it, and maybe it's because it should have been done all in Elvish. Maybe then it would be because this is the something that the creators of South Park picked up on. You can say super cheesy dialogue in another language, and nobody cares because it's dialogue that they don't hear. They read it, and it's not cheesy when they read it. And they make fun of this on one of the South Park episodes. So I think that's maybe what they could have done here. Make the speech all in Elvish just to add that heightened level to it. But I digress. It's not that big a deal. I just thought it was kind of funny that like they made a point to he was stuck on this one part of the speech, and then when we hear it, it's like it's not. You didn't do a great job on it, Elrond. You did okay, I guess. It's. I think it could have been better.
I noted that he says "Days of Peace begin," and he's like looks at Galadriel when he says that.
Yeah.
So he's like kind of.
Yeah, he
like, knows she's obsessed, and he's sending her to Valinor to get her out of here.
Yeah. Like, you've done a good job. We are now at peace. Yeah, I like that too. I picked up on that too. It's good. Now, I will say this is one of the... So, the wardrobe, it's kind of hit or miss on some of these races. Elves are kind of hit or miss with me. In this scene, I'm pretty good with it. There's other scenes where I'm not as okay with it. But I just wanted to like mention that here so that when it comes up again... Some of the races are elves, dwarves, and Numenor are the ones that are hit or miss with the costume department on. So the set's still great though. Like the set is beautiful, and this is one of like the stills that was released like a year out before they did the show. It looks great, and I see why they keep coming back to this set. It's fun and it's magical. So. Yeah, I like this set. I think it really does feel like a land of elves here. Yeah.
So we have Galadriel visits her brother's memorial, and it's statues carved in like it's dead soldiers or dead elves who have been carved into these trees.
Yeah.
And I think that's going into like she's still obsessed. She's obsessed.
Yeah, because
really
she
dri-
says she
they're
wanted to be a tree. She wanted to be one of these carvings.
They're driving it home that she is obsessed.
Yeah.
Galadriel is. Galadriel said, did she say this? Evil doesn't sleep, it waits.
Yeah.
Compelling.
Honestly, there's some on Revisit. There actually is some decent dialogue that I was like. I didn't see that because as I was watching it, I was still fixated on the dialogue that I didn't like, and I missed some of the good dialogue. So I'm actually okay with some of it. Now I will say, Elrond, I don't know what the direction the actor got here. He kind of like sneaks up on Galadriel in this weird like he's like spying on her kind of thing. I wrote down maybe he's Sauron. Anyway,